Hello, friends. Today, the Shadow Control Project team is going to a real shamanic village. We will find out how people live there. So we came to a real shamanic school. Now we will talk with the Deputy Supreme Shaman of Russia, Arthur Tsybikov. Arthur, please tell us how the idea of a shamanic village in general came about.
Romanesque is our glade, and it arose in the village, well, let's say, spontaneously, because I used to host Dockney on the censor. But since it was inconvenient bonfires, tambourines with neighbors, it's not quite good, as it were, and it's right. Well, we'll knock at night. This is legally very difficult, and there were some problems. In winter it was still normal when there was no one there, neighbors, and in summer there were already problems, difficulties. And we found this clearing, and we slowly began to build and do all this on chicken legs. And that's how it discharged. At first it was a tent, then one building, the second, and all the buildings appeared according to needs. In other words, my shaman students pray to their ancestors and help people in every yurt. This is my central yurt.
Tell me about the arrangement. Well, so the yurt shapes are all the same.
The shapes of the yurt are not the same. My yurt is octagonal, eight-walled. The sign of the sun symbol. Here in the center it is made like a family tree. And a dome, a cap. These are the highest heavens, the highest deities. This is the glass one at the top. That is, well, architecturally, so to speak. The right side from the north, if you look, is considered male, left and female. Here. And accordingly, in the northwest, we offer an offering to the higher gods, the ancestors, through fire, through the god of fire. And there in the forge, we offer offerings through the fire, so to speak, demanding.
And what does white mean?
White color. But it is a symbol of purity of thoughts, purity of life, the highest spiritual state, but also in physics. All colors come out of white. That is, if all the colors are added together, there will be a white color.
And the trident on top.
The trident is a symbol of fire, a symbol of wisdom, a symbol of the three worlds. There are many meanings in it. Well, the symbol of a certain kind is, let's say, the presence of an organization in a given territory, so to speak.
In general, the yurts are not built on some basis. Well, they're in the form.
Suppose. No, I was guided by simple everyday things. When, let's say, geese or cranes, swans fly in a wedge, it is much easier and simpler. Plus, we have the concept of the orientation of the rites. In other words, we are shamans, our organizations, we pray to the west and the northwest. And the shape of the clearing and its placement, it is so made that this is all the altar place, is directed to the northwest-west. And, accordingly, if you put the yurt in line, it is a big expense of the territory. It's kind of limited here, yes. The administration has allocated land for rent. And accordingly, we have built like this wedge, as one flock, as one society, as one organization. And here in each yurt, my students are shamans.
Arthur, we are grateful that you accepted our invitation. And the first question, please tell me, how did you become a shaman? What contributed to this? Maybe some events, phenomena in your life.
I am a Buryat by nationality. And, accordingly, we have always been shamanists and professed shamanism. Although, by the way, the shaman, of course, is used by the most, yes, that is, by the northern peoples. We have Buryat shamans called God. That is, the three letters are simply God. There is a bow shaman, and there is a blacksmith shaman, that is, there was a dark hen. I kind of have it all generic. My grandfather was a shaman, my dad was a shaman. He is now 75 years old. Here. And accordingly, I am also a shaman. But shamanism differs in that there is a concept of earthly shamanism. In other words, these are shamans who pray and work in a certain area. There are heavenly shamans for whom, for us, the territory is not limited. That is, you can safely pray from anywhere in the world, turn to the great gods, the eternally blue sky, to our firmament, and ask for help and support. Shamanism in Russia is not officially recognized yet, as it were. It is considered a kind tribal and is, as it were, from the point of view of modernity, seemingly in a rudimentary state, from the point of view of legal support. But shamanism. All the existing current religions in the world, they came out of shamanism. Therefore, now there is such an interesting trend that people are returning to their roots, returning to spiritual truths. And everyone comes to faith, ancestors, gods, well, or one or another religion in their own way.
For the audience, a very interesting personal story. Could you share, well, why did you become a shaman? Maybe something pushed you on this path.
12 years I have already started, well, in a rustic way, let's say. At home I have older people, well, here are my relatives. There are grandma, grandpa, mom, dad, relatives sometimes asked there. Well, there is such an expression of fighting, that is, well, make a massage like this. A little chondrosis there, to treat a finger there, something there is just to crumple. So it turned out that I was good at it. And since you were about 12, 13, 14 years old, I have already, as it were, in principle, inserted joints, tendons, muscles, and the head of the rules. Plus, my dad is a shaman, and as if I had seen it all since childhood. And in this. Then my grandfather also treated people at that time. I was also small sometimes, I remember how he did it. I poured water into a basin, heated tin or lead to a liquid state, and poured out the water. If there was a table of lights going up, then it helped a person. If, like a shot, like mercury, the metal of the water in the basin rolled over the surface, then, accordingly. He said that he could not cure, and suggested that people go somewhere else. Well, for me shamanism, as if it were family, ordinary. I lived in it, cooked and sort of. But from the point of view of becoming a shaman, I had such a thought since childhood. But my grandmother always told me that there can't be two shamans in a family, a father and son, then one of them can die. And there can only be one. And accordingly, knowing this, I was like a wish, but the thought that one of us could die, Dad or I, there, well, as if I was holding back. And, accordingly, Dad prayed, Dad did the rituals, everything seemed to improve. And I just lived an ordinary secular life, studied at institutes, universities, technical schools, served in the army. Here. And when I was 35 or 36 years old, my dad got sick, lost a lot of weight, couldn't eat. And for us it was amazing. As if yes, a shoemaker without boots. Everyone is being treated, but he got sick. It was unclear. And we went to the Aginsky district, to the Transbaikal territory. A shaman was found there. And there we all found out and figured it out, and realized that the shamanism, that Dad was a technician. If you take a 10-year school education, then this is the primary class level. And in order for him to survive, and continue to work, and help people, respectively, he needs to finish school. Get a certificate, go to college. Well, it's infinitely possible there. As here is the prevention of Privolaski activity. You can do science for the rest of your life. Here. And accordingly, everything was corrected and cured for Dad. And there in Aegean, the shamans told me that I should be a shaman. For me it was like, well, surprised at more fright, that as a shaman I get tired, will one of us die? And I went up to that teacher then, and asked, here we have such a belief, that it is possible, someone can die. She said it, no, your father is a shaman after his father, and you are after your mother, that is, according to my father's wife. According to his wife. And I was so surprised that there is such an option. And accordingly, they said that it was necessary to dedicate. And now, in the 7th or 8th year, I began to participate in the rituals of a modern, so to speak, technique. But in fact it is ancient, but for us it is considered modern. Because that generation of our grandfathers, great-grandfathers, who used shamanism. It was so tribal, archaic, and so compressed in the ritual component that it was impossible to understand what a shaman could do at all. But in fact, when I have already become the highest shaman Zaarin, now it is clear to me. That is, earlier, when I was just starting to shamanize, I had to light the ashes, that is, put a candle, yes, set the table, invoke the gods. It took 2 or 1.5 hours, that's all. I prayed, sweated, and fell down. There's such a feeling. Then the person was assisted. And sometimes it happened that a person came, asked, and I prayed. He comes in 1.5 or 2 years. Listen, do you remember, we prayed? Yes, that's what happened. Yeah, what are you? And what? Well, it's not necessary anymore, as it were. But it worked. Then I started thinking and praying more diligently, and figuring it out. And, accordingly, the terms and time of assistance, and the manifestation of the action of my practices, began to decrease for a while. That is, from 2 to 1.5 years to a year, months. And now it's just that even a person cannot call. And I have, as it were, now a very serious, fast, strong contact with my ancestors. And I can even just ask an ancestor, say, but I don't have the opportunity to light a candle right now. Please help this person here, and then I'll tell you everything. In other words, I will reimburse all of this in advance. And it immediately becomes easier for a person, or some issue is being resolved there.
So you can, in fact, remotely, yes, work.
We can work remotely, we can work directly. Of course, it is best when a person comes and personal communication, because with personal contact, as we know from anatomy, psychology, and the interaction of verbal things between people read information according to several parameters. And therefore, for me, of course, it will be of high quality. If a person comes in person, we will talk with him more openly. And the balls will be wider. It will be possible to help them and correct his situation. Because, as a rule, there is no one trouble. It is mutually clinging, and these problems follow each other, and therefore, it is easier so. So, and accordingly, when in the 7th year I was told that she was a shaman, and that none of us would die, because, as they say, I am such a person without breaks, I plunged into it completely. Well, I began to dedicate myself, I began to understand, to study, to go to Aginsk. Almost every month I went 2 or 3 times, talked a lot with shamans, went to different practices. We traveled through the Irkutsk region, Transbaikalia, Buryatia. In general, I studied all this, delved into it and figured it out. And, accordingly, I read a lot of all sorts of different publications, very different researchers. Common to many authors of antiquity there about shamanism. Here my friends came to the Academy of Hypnotists of France from Paris. So they gave me a book in French, it's true, but also there and in the archives they found here. About sketches, records of these French travelers, Europeans, where it was written about shamanism, about Siberian shamanism. Well, I read a lot of interesting things there, of course, but still, let's say, everything is archaic. To date, the shamanism that we use, methods and techniques, it is more serious, more voluminous, and more conscious. Because earlier, when the ancestral gods told people, shamans, or showed them in visions, the level of education of people did not allow them to fully expand this. And, accordingly, many shamans, how do you do it? Well, that's what I thought, that's what I did, and that's it. But to explain, to tell, to understand. And now modern technologies and science allow us to look at all these shamanic practices from one side or another, decompose, and understand how it all works.
So you can, in principle, from the point of view of science, yes, explain?
Science, physics, yes, biology, anatomy, psychology.
Very interesting. Can you give an example?
Well, let's say Darwin's theory, of course, it's interesting, but let's say I wouldn't like to think that I'm from a monkey. In our shamanism, in myths, legends, in such an epic of the about the Buryat hero, it says right specifically, a metal egg flew to the ground, and a hero was born from it. But it's clear to us, right? UFO. A spaceship, a helicopter, an airplane, I don't know what. Our pro-ancestors arrived, the aliens came out, left these people to live here, study, build, explore the world, and flew away. Well, through telepathy, psychokinesis, there and all our various spiritual things, we communicate with them. Well, these were the people, magi, healers, priests, shamans, sorcerers, witches. These are the people who, as transmitters, repeaters, had a communication link with the gods and transmitted some information. Someone heard well, who had a noise regulator working fine there. Someone heard 2 or 3 words or 1 letter crookedly and made some conclusions. But nevertheless, one way or another, at this moment, until the 2012 year, humanity, Homo sapiens as a whole, has been trained and cognized the world with 5 sense organs. These are eyes, ears, sense of smell, taste and tactile things. And accordingly, we as people, as Homo sapi, did not take place. They created a nuclear bomb, flew into space. And accordingly, we currently understand everything that happens on Earth in one way or another. And in order to understand the depths of the cosmos and in general how it all came about, it is impossible without high spiritual qualities and spiritual level. And accordingly, the gods and ancestors have now given us all people on Earth, a 6th sense. That is, since the year 2012, all people have become shamans. Everyone now hears something, sees something, feels something, predicts something, anticipates something. The only problem is that there are no methods of recognition and understanding what the gods tell us, what signs they give us, and how to live with it, and how to deal with it, as he says, and understand it.
In other words, everyone can hear it in principle.
Now that's exactly what happened. In some online publications, this is called a quantum leap, or these Schumann vibrations, yes, when changes occur. When the movement of molecules accelerates, and the oxygen percentage composition on Earth also changes. And, accordingly, the Earth's magnetic field is changing, and there are a lot of certain physical adds that affect a person now. And plus, of course, there is no technogenic. What we have created now, mobile phones, communications, internet, Wi-Fi, and everything else. In other words, it also has a serious impact on us. And therefore, at the moment, all people are shamans. Well, not from the point of view that a shaman should and is obliged to treat people, but from the point of view that every person now has a function that allows him to understand the world, feel it, figure it out. And before it had to be specially born, but now everyone has it. That is as before, yes, in Soviet times only special people had a phone at home. But now we probably won't find 2 phones with 2 kopecks on the street. Everyone has a mobile phone, and everyone seems to be moving freely now, and can safely call and transmit some information at any point. Also in shamanism. In other words, earlier it was necessary to be born with this transmitter, with these abilities, and broadcast, and show people some certain moments so that society does not slip into ignorance at all and does not degrade completely. Well, now it's like modern technology already allows you to calmly understand what is happening, how it is happening. That is, even if, let's say, I give an example to people so that they understand the modern, and then they come, I say, ancestors, gods. They don't understand at all. Dad, mom, parent, grandfather, grandmother, how did they die there? How can they help us? We don't see them, we don't know. I say, well, you don't see the mobile connection, how the phone works, the call comes, how Wi-Fi works. You can't see. We don't see how radiation affects a person. But it is impossible to deny it. So a simple example. Everyone has a mobile phone. Here, if we draw a parallel, the mobile phone, the case itself, the glass, the microcircuits are our physical body. A SIM card is a nationality. But in Android, it's the soul. Or here in Apple, yes, there is iOS. This is the soul. Here and our ancestors, about the ancestors, yes, these are its specialists who write these programs in Silicon Valley. A disease in a person. These are virus programs.
But shamans, well, often communicate with their ancestors, right?
In shamanism, polytheism is developed, and there is a very large serious structure, hierarchy. The shaman in the first stages of recovery, of course, turns and prays to his ancestors. But we need to understand what the heavenly ancestors are. In Christianity, this is called saints. Yes, that is, a person who lived on earth in a human body, the soul achieved holiness. And so they become guardian angels, so to speak. Then every person has such guardian angels. These are the grandfathers and grandmothers who used to live, left. And in the heavenly chancery, they had, so to speak, a workplace. And they have the right to help people, their descendants on earth. It is also necessary to understand that not everyone in the family has a relative and has holiness. These are special people who have karmically achieved perfection by the arrival of souls on earth, living human lives in different centuries. Times, who have reached the level of holiness, who came from heaven to the office. And so they work for them, and they have the right to help their descendants and communicate and interact with the higher gods. The structures of the universe, the cosmos, other planets and other civilizations, other worlds. Accordingly, when a shaman becomes up to 3 or 5 years old, he, of course, prays and communicates only with his ancestors. When a shaman already receives the status of Zaarin, that is, yes, well, let's say, if we take in our modern life, a person graduated from the institute university, he already gets the right, the opportunity to turn to the higher gods. Well, accordingly, in our penton of the gods in shamanism, in Bariat we have 3 worlds, that is, the lower world, that is, the hellish pickle system, the middle world, where our ancestors' gods live, and the upper world of the gods. These are already the stars, the sun, the moon, and the planets of the earth. Well, that is, the solar system, or rather, the planets. Here. And for each growth of the shaman, it implies exactly the passage of these levels. That is, at first we pray, get acquainted with the lower world. Then we go to the middle world, and the middle world goes to the upper world. But the growth of the shaman, of course, it is due to very serious transformations of the inner spiritual world. Because, well, here it is sometimes very difficult, and on the verge of insanity. Because when the ancestors' gods begin to test the human shaman, they begin to throw up all sorts of different tests. Physically, morally, spiritually, financially. And, accordingly, a person must endure it. Like they say in fairy tales, right? The groom came. The king says, "Listen, but I will give you my wife's daughter. But you have 3 wishes there, 3 questions you need to fulfill, that is, the task." And here too, the predatory gods ask some tasks. A person must fulfill this, must understand, recognize, show will, spirit, moral qualities, and, well, accordingly. Then he grows and begins to help people. And we are divided into 2 types of shamanism and shamans. These are the first shamans. These are generic ones who pray to their ancestors, and pray only for their relatives and loved ones. They do not help outsiders, they do not interfere with very big serious issues, problems. And there is the concept of a public shaman. This is a shaman who has the title and status of a teacher, a guardian, and a shaman who can help other people and participate in their fate, in their lives. Because every person who is sick or has a problem, we call it generic damage, or an educational and methodical process from their ancestors. And therefore, when I am a public shaman, or help people, I am not interested in the person himself. What kind of diseases and problems he has. Because all the problems are from his ancestors, from his family. Accordingly, I will ask my ancestors, they find the ancestors of a person, the data that came to me. Negotiate with his ancestors, and so on. Ancestors weaken the impact, or improve the life of their offspring on earth.
A person, let's say, does not need to bring you a photo of their ancestors. You act through.
Yes, we ask our ancestors directly whom I interact with, my ancestors' breed. They are already there in the database, they're in the library, they're in the archives, they find the ancestors of a person who has problems. They sit down at the table, maybe they drink, maybe they don't drink. But I'm not sending vodka, they probably drink it.
And how does this happen from a practical point of view? Well, how do you communicate with hide and seek? You hear their voices, you see images or hear.
In shamanism, in medicine, in Vedism, yes, they're in the priesthood. Clairvoyance is divided into several types. There is a concept of clairvoyance, clairaudience, clairvoyance. Clairvoyance, as a rule, see pictures as video clips or events of some kind, like a movie. Clairaudient. These are the shamans that people hear, the voice. Hear. And there is a clear knower, that is, a shaman who, well, once in my head, and he knows. As a thought. Once and for all. And so clairvoyance is considered the highest level of clairvoyance. These are abilities, because a human shaman does not need to interpret images or what he heard, sit there and think and figure it out. Or sort it out, how it relates to a person, how to help him, what kind of right to conduct. During the cultivation of growth, I did not have clairvoyance and clairaudience. I had a clear understanding right away. For some reason, I came as a person. I talked to him while I understood inside that he had, how he had, what problems, and helped. Here I have an aunt, let's say a shaman, she is clairvoyant. And sometimes I call her, I say, look please. And she tells me like a video clip. And me. For me, this is understandable. And she, listen, I didn't understand, this was shown and why, where, for what. How to connect it. Well, sometimes it may not decompose and interpret, which is why it was all shown. And for me, let's say I am. Because I conducted the ceremony, and, let's say, I want to know how it went there. I asked her, let's say she looked at it, I figuratively said to me, oh that's it, I understood how I started, how the process went, how I finished it, how I got out of it. And there's a picture of her for me. Everything is clear. I understood everything, everything is right, so I did everything right. She, yeah, well, okay. That is, it's as if she just took a flash drive with photos and gave it to me, and I don't know who was photographed there. What kind of people are there, and what events are there? For me, I opened and looked at the photos, then it was done. Well, yes, such an image. For me, let it be clear. There are people with hearing shamans, their ancestors tell them directly in their voices, but it's more difficult with them. Because sometimes when a person hears someone's voice, it's at the level of schizophrenia, split personality. And people do not always perceive and understand this correctly. Some get scared, some start to put so much pressure on the psyche, that people start telling relatives, friends. They perceive him as crazy. And accordingly, they are put in hospitals, respectively, violate and spoil the shaman, as it were. And it is very difficult for a shaman to return after a psychiatric hospital. Well, that is, we have cases when shamans were in a psychiatric hospital, then came to us, and we managed them. But if strong drugs were injected, then if there are physical connections in the brain are broken. Then it is difficult for a person to return to shamanism and, so to speak, resuscitate. Well, and if there is so in a light form, and we are it? We are getting some things right. And, accordingly, a person becomes healthy, normal. We just explain how to work for him, that this is not schizophrenia, that this is not your mental illness. This is what the ancestors say, they want to interact with you through themselves, they want to participate in the life of the family, people, their descendants. And that's fine. This is exactly what we have smoothly approached the concept of shamanic disease. And in the term shamanic disease, it's all that an abnormal deviation from a normal lifestyle and behavior, as a rule, is, yes, there really is a shamanic disease. But there is also a manifestation, so to speak, of devilry. That is, if the dark world has received the task of punishing a person to us, then he begins to experience it. And therefore, of course, it is not always the person who experiences, so to speak, the eater. It is connected with shamanic disease. They bring us to the shaman, we look at what is a provocative thing. That is, the dark world and the lower world of a person punishes his lost deeds.
But can I go into more detail? A person somehow attracts this dark world, or, well, why is it?
People who attract, and there are people who get souls in human bodies in previous incarnations on earth. For their actions or for past actions, or it's a karmic breed, and he is, as they say, a scapegoat. That is, earlier ancestors, relatives committed some offenses, sins, respectively, came to heaven. They can't work it out in heaven, because everything can be worked out only through living people, only on earth. In heaven, in my understanding, there is no heaven-hell. Heaven-hell takes place, and is located on earth, among us humans. That is, if we behave incorrectly in relation to our relatives, friends, nature, our health, our soul, hell arises around us. If we understand the right rules of the game, how to live, what to do, we will have paradise.
Can a person get rid of the essence himself?
There are cases when a person can get rid of himself, having his own will and strength of spirit. Or on a whim, his soul leads him to this or that person, who contributed to his recovery. Or a person somehow, so the situation develops, that a person finds himself there, let's say in a church, yes, in a mosque, or in a synagogue, or at a shaman. Well, and, accordingly, it also comes out. It happens. If this did not happen in a person, then there is such a concept of obsession in Christianity, right? When otherworldly forces, so to speak, Libra, devils enter into a person, and displace the soul from the person and the body, and begin to use it for their needs. And then people begin to get sick, to feel unwell, and then they turn to shamans. And here we are. We're pulling it out.
And you work?
Yes, we are working, yes. Here. Well, as far as I know, the Russian Orthodox Church in Russia has adopted this technique of exorcism. Now she is being taken away and special courses are being conducted. And accordingly, this is the place to be.
And what other rites do you perform? Well, let's say a person. What requests do people most often come with?
But people come with all the questions concerning their lives. From the birth of a person to his death, to work, health, illness, some good luck, and career advancement.
Maybe there is the most popular one.
The most popular. Now the most popular and the most terrible thing for me has become that people come and ask for children. Now in modern society, the problem is very difficult to give birth to children. It would seem that something like that, yes. In fact, they met, got married, but they live for years, they can't give birth. Well, this adds up to a lot of problems and things. Ecology, lack of understanding of life in people, and, accordingly, karmic. That is, from the point of view of the fact that if people cannot give birth to a child, in our understanding children, this is our future, then, accordingly, these people, if there is no future, then they have done something wrong in the past. Well, because it's the past, the present, the future. These are chains, links of the same chain. Accordingly, if there are no children, it means that in a previous life, or during life, people made some mistakes, problems.
Do you refuse people to perform any ritual, attire?
We do not refuse anyone. At least I don't refuse anyone. Even if a person comes and says that I'm not satisfied with a neighbor or boss, I just explain the reasons why this hell happened in his life. Why is his boss yelling at him? Why is his neighbor yelling at him? Why would a dog run and run up? He was bitten by one, although there were a lot of people there. Well, that is, I explain the investigative things to the reason, and accordingly, if a person already understands, if his level of morality and education allows him to understand and accept it, then, accordingly, he recovers. If not, but the gods then begin to throw him, his ancestors, other test options. Well, it's not far from extreme measures, when a person gets into an accident or serious illness, loses some organs, or relatives, friends, or large financial ones. Losses, that is, are coming. This is very important to understand, and we refuse no one. They come to me here and sorcerers come and say right to my face, and I'm stronger than you. And I communicate with the Almighty there. Very well. And what? Why did you come to me? Did I have any interest for you, if you communicate with the Almighty? Well, that's how some come. Recently, a girl called and asked for forgiveness. She was asked by some sorceress, she made a spell to kill me, and they buried something here somewhere. She arrived at night, buried it. So after a while he calls and asks for forgiveness. I'm sorry, I was forced to do this, I was scared, I buried it. I say, girl, you're talking to me now, I'm alive. Well, yes. Well, then it doesn't work. Well, yes. Well, put everything out of your head and live a normal life. Oh, how good, he says, I'm sorry, please. Well, the person repented, that is, realized that he was a tool in someone else's hands, repented, understood. Received forgiveness and absolution, as they say, yes, of sins. Accordingly, now I'm looking at Instagram, she has a very good, wonderful life. A child, a husband, a dog, resting. Well, I mean, I see that a person lives normally, is decently dressed, as if yes. There are photos in different countries, she goes on vacation with her husband. Well, that is, here is a man who repented, as it were. And for me, it is clear. She was tested for morality. The person you made realized that he still needs to learn more to work in order to achieve the goal. Accordingly, everyone got their own in this life.
Are there people who will not be affected by your rituals at all?
We have a certain power, but let's say I can't talk a wart. A simple grandmother in the village, there in Cheromkovo, let's say she blew on a bitch and the warts healed. How it works is unclear. Well, as if I were sitting, thinking, I had thoughts about it. Well, as if it should be checked. Therefore, let's say we have the concept of a blacksmith, Darkhan. These are people who pray to the patron gods of skill, skills. People make all sorts of different products. That's right there. But I don't have the talent. Therefore, I can't say that I can do everything. It doesn't happen that way. Each person has his own personality, each person has his own uniqueness. Like fingerprints, there are no 7 billion identical irises. Accordingly, each person comes to Earth with his mission, but you need to understand that in the course of a person's life, regardless of which world, from which level his soul came to Earth, how the soul received the task and mission. His soul must and has the right, as they say, to repent, to receive repentance, to manifest spiritual qualities, and be reborn. Or in the process of life, to correct and achieve holiness. Every person, every soul has this ability. That is, and therefore, even if the soul, let's say a person, the soul, or rather, committed sins, came to the heavenly office. And the heavenly gods say, well, here you are, in order for you to improve, you have to do very badly to several people. Now you're going to be born, and you're going to torture people there, yes, kill them there and do something else. And accordingly, this person is born, and begins to fulfill this mission, to harm people. But that's exactly what it is, that in every person there is a particle of God. And this is the same last murderer, the scoundrel. If he understands inside that this cannot be done, and that this is a test and intrigue, and he must be on the side of the light forces, and will not fulfill what is destined for him, then he just has the opportunity to show holiness, reach the level, and get out of this management and this world. And not to perform tasks of the lower world, so to speak. But this is such a serious, heavy, big philosophy. And so all this is very difficult to understand and accept at once, because the methods and lifestyle of education in our modern man, it does not provide for all these things. And now people seem to understand the material world, but the spiritual world is not clear. And there is no general rule, terms. And people are now being thrown into various spiritual practices, yoga, reiki, holotropic breathwork, shamans, sorcerers, bedouins, tantrists, wherever. What only people do.
What does a person feel after the ritual that came to you? Does he feel a surge of strength, or vice versa?
In general, it depends, of course, on the person, his emotional state, and, as they say, understanding. There are such people who are, well, thick-skinned. Well, let's say we have a blacksmith's rite of purification of the body. We heat the metal to red, there are about 700 or 800 degrees, and cauterize the tongue. Here are some people in the form of red-hot metal fainting, and some cauterize. He does not even understand that the language has come. Well, that is, it depends, of course, on the person. Here, but there is no goal for a person to feel something, because in shamanism, and at least in our school, I strive to ensure that we are not a hint in the educational process. We are more like teachers who say, here is a task for you, and you yourself find a way and a solution. And here we are to people, as it were. I, at least, try so hard that a person has come, I explain to him. I tell him what is happening in his life, and his strong inner spiritual work should happen. That is, let's say a man came and he says, I have problems with children all the time. Children get sick. Well, stop being jealous of your wife. Well, me. It's okay to be jealous of your wife. I say, well, can you imagine, you are constantly feeding this demon dragon, and you are spending all your strength, and all your life opportunities on this, that you are restraining yourself, you are there, you are going crazy. You are running around with an axe, chasing your wife, but this is wrong. You have to overcome this moment, you have to grow spiritually, morally and accordingly, if you got married. Love your wife, and the mother of your children, you have to believe her. You can't put her there druska or something else and watch for 24 hours. Well, first of all, this is a violation of human space. Again, each person comes with his own mission, with his own soul. And we are making a kind of contract here on earth. Yes, in the modern world, this is called a prenuptial agreement. When a man and a woman get married, they have a definite agreement that they will live together, raise children. And everyone begins to work according to his soul and to learn about this world and gain experience. Therefore, people are different, of course. Someone feels, someone does not feel. Someone likes it, someone doesn't like it. There are people who come, they are all ready. We haven't done anything yet. Them. Here I have, let's say, a man came with a crutch, came in, his leg hurt. He put the crutch there in the corner. While we were talking, I explained everything to him. He's like, yeah, I get it, yeah. Well, I'll go, I say. Well, yes. He got up and left, and forgot his crutch. And near the car already there in the parking lot, I get out. Have you forgotten? I'm talking. He's like, wow, he's talking to himself. Well, that is like this, the person immediately recovered and went, because many diseases, they are on psychosomatics. And the more severe the diseases, the longer a person cannot cope with his demons cockroaches, as they say, in his head. That's why do happy fools say. Because they do not bother and do not torment with all sorts of incomprehensible thoughts. Well, or there, yes, well, God gave, God took. And the simpler you live, the easier it seems to become.
And speaking of you, do you need to recover after rituals? If so, how do you do it?
Every job. It costs not only physically, but also moral and spiritual forces. Accordingly, we get tired, as normal people usually do. Of course, we are recovering, but we are recovering twice a month. There are special days when we pray to our ancestors and ask them to cleanse us, take away diseases, some problems, and give us strength and energy. This is called ancestral rites, veneration of ancestors twice a month. Accordingly, we are all recovering cleanly on them. But if, as it were, a shaman man gets sick, and there is no time to wait, because it is on certain days, according to the lunar calendar. Well, that is, we have certain ones there, so to speak, we speak holy water, we do ablution there, we ask another shaman to pray, to clean us. Well, that is a rite, the same blacksmith's rite, they're to cauterize, clean up. Well, it's mandatory, and we do it all the time. There is no way without it. You can't work in the same clothes when it sometimes needs to be washed. And so is man. Shaman. It works, it gets dirty, accordingly it is necessary to put yourself in order. We are cleansed and charged, of course, at our shamanic initiation rites every year. That is, if we take it from the point of view of motor transport, then, let's say, here is a wheel change, and there is an oil change. These are such small things. That's to stop by then, to see the whole car completely, so that the masters looked. This happens with us once a year in the summer during shamanic initiation, where we put birch trees, run, clean ourselves. We are disassembled, assembled, repaired, changed everything there and charged with energy for the whole year. And I'm into maintaining a kind of health. This is twice a month.
And do people come to you who want you to initiate them into shamans? And do you do this?
I've spent the last 2 or 3 years very much like that. There is a concept of such a window of opportunity. That is, from the beginning of the 90s to the 2019 year, the doors of heaven were open for initiation. And the appearance of shamans of any nationality, of any age. In other words, there was such a window of opportunity. Anyone could come and do it. Here in the 19th, 20th year, this window was closed. And now we need to take this very seriously. And a person who feels like he has some strength, and he has a desire, needs to become a shaman or a witch doctor, of course. He can come, and we will see if he fits.
What requirements, let's say, are there that
a person should be at least adequate at the first moment? And then sometimes people come, start, well, as they say, but to carry such a blizzard. I'm connected there. I have 7 initiations there, I have this there, I am there in the lower world, the devil himself serves me there. They start talking such nonsense there. Well, you just look at a person and realize that, well, he must first be treated, corrected. Then some people, so to speak, want to assert themselves through shamanism. In other words, let's say they have not achieved something in life, and after becoming a shaman, they think that they will have recognition. And so they come and say, here I want to be a shaman there, I feel strong, I can. Well, when he begins to dedicate himself, he begins to spend money, and his ancestors' gods begin to test how metal heats up. Or how a sculptor begins to chip away there, and a sculpture turns out on blocks of stone. A person is in pain, anxious, scared, and then he suddenly sees clearly, oh, this is not mine, I will not be a shaman. And here, as if I have already entered here, there is no way out. That is, a person, as a rule, if he has embarked on this path, he has shown himself before the ancestors' gods. Even if he does not want to, he has already lit up anyway.
What can wait for a person who has embarked on this path, but then refuses it? Well, roughly speaking, can you refuse now?
I'm not going to give up, because I kind of know my mission, purpose, and this is my favorite thing. Because if you take my workbook, I have so many professions there. And it's only now that I realize that it was all a prelude to shamanism, and that I understood the memory of how people live, and what problems they have, aspirations to help them now. And some people, of course, if they refuse. I have such shaman students. We try to cover them up, we try to do everything right, but it's fraught with consequences for the person himself. There is, right. Here is a man said, I will be the one who is the mediator. And then he says I won't do it. Even if it's like a kid, yes, he will say, well, you're a sucker and that's it. And how will they be treated? But that's how they will be treated. And accordingly, he closes doors to him, certain opportunities. Well, it happens that a person, of course, dies or becomes disabled. Well, as often as a rule, they just start living the life of a gray mouse. And at the same time, they can no longer do anything in their lives to directly change and do something. Well, it's like a kind of stain, yes, on a person that, well, no fish, no meat, what's with it? And that's it. And, as a rule, this person just lives a life, exists. Well, how would he make a choice? This is a difficult path for a shaman, because these are daily minute-by-minute checks and loads. Because when we help a person, we enter into his life and his destiny, as it were. A man, if he has taken it, no matter how hard it is necessary to scrape. Because as in the Institute, the first 2 courses you run around like a fool, you don't sleep, and then the third or fifth year is already full of teachers. Well, come on, okay, go for a clear setting, well done. Well, that is, he is condescending. Therefore, if a person became a shaman and then refused, it is very bad, very difficult, and dangerous. That's why I'm explaining to many shamans now and telling the young ones, well, you definitely. Then you won't cry. Burn it all, curse it, insult it all. No, we won't. All right. And some, let's say I have shamans who. They had a task. Well, that is, there was such a situation that a married couple came, they had no children for almost 10 years. I said that you need to become a shaman, study for 5 years, and they will give you children. He's been out of school for exactly 5 years, and his wife got pregnant. But him. In general, he says, I am a builder, and how to help people. I don't see myself in this. I don't feel. What to do? Well, this, I say, is difficult. But he says I'm 35 years old now. Is it possible to go back to this in 50 years? Of course. Let's ask the ancestors to give me a reprieve until I'm 50.
Can I take a break?
And we wrapped everything in black bags, put it all in the locker. They prayed and asked. And now he seems to be living, working, raising children, not performing rituals, nothing like yes. Well, the ancestors are waiting for his 50th birthday.
And how do you feel about the fact that there are a lot of rituals on the internet now? Yes, you can find some practices, and now people are engaged in them without having the initiation. Well, often without knowing anything except what is written on the internet. What is it fraught with for people?
When a person, let's say I am a teacher, I dedicate a shaman and take a disciple. I am responsible to my family, to the family of my disciple, to his ancestors the gods. Accordingly, if a shaman, my disciple, behaves incorrectly, the gods ask me questions, and I am responsible for him. Here are people who are trying to do something via the internet, or there to some books or practices. Well, first of all, there is no such connection, imitation, yes, direct contact. This is already wrong. And learn from books. I think it is possible to understand, but it is impossible to get initiation from books and videos. Because there is, as it were, initiation. When a disciple comes to the teacher, it's as if there is some kind of spiritual union of connection. And how? We are living people, and we are connected with the gods. And how can there be a book or, let's say, a camera or the internet? It does not have spirituality, it does not have holiness. It does not have a connection with this world, it is divine, it cannot be a contact. And accordingly, from the point of view of information, you can understand, see what is closer to the soul. And then try to find a teacher using the technique that is more pleasant and convenient for him. Because not everyone can be shamans, they're from a broad profile. Let's say someone is well versed in astrology, someone is well versed in palmistry, yes, they look at the lines of the palm there. Someone understands, begins not to fold tarot cards well, and you see, explain to people, help. But all these things, they, of course, must necessarily be the initiations of the transfer. It used to be when old grandmothers called relatives or neighbors to them, or chose one of the people and said, "Come here, I'll touch you. Yes, I'll tell you. I'm all gone to the gods now. Come on, come here." And how or past books, and said there, "That's right, the granddaughter will grow up, give her these books, let them help people." And then the time comes, mom with an inner understanding, or when grandma specifically said, "Here she is there. Her granddaughter will be there for 30, there for 40 years, you will give her these notebooks, books." And that's it. And so initiation takes place, that is, direct transmission through living people. Only live communication, only live contact, can give an idea that there is a connection between a teacher and a student. Book publications, online publications, videos, some notes, photographs, notebooks. They can't convey it. Even these videos. The girl, let's say, came to me. My grandmother gave me a gift, but through my mother, she gave these notebooks. And I explained that you know how it works, but your grandmother didn't touch your hand, and there was no certain ritual there. Because you didn't find her. We can combine it and, accordingly, you will continue to work. Well, here we do, connect, and the person works. And we explain how to defend ourselves, how to preserve the health of our relatives and friends. Because in shamanism and in general in this esoteric stuff, if someone helps someone, you need to clearly understand that we seem to take this burden and the problem for ourselves too. Do you understand?
That is, protection is necessary.
Of course, you need protection and understanding. That is, imagine a person carrying a heavy backpack. And you come up and say, "Listen, let me help you, putting some of it in my backpack, and the two of us will carry this knife." Do you understand? Here I am as a shaman. I come up and say, "Let's say it's hard in your backpack, let's put it in my backpack." He says, "Yes, good. Well, get in my car and go." I'm like this with me. And many are harnessed and dragged. And everyone there is a poppy, or a psychic, or a witch doctor. He must understand what the consequences will be, and what will happen. Let's say that an herbalist came to me, and said that in the old knowledge, herbal medicines for abortions were made there. And if it doesn't work, a disabled child will be born, what will happen? And then you get into this and you have to. The soul came to earth, the gods went, missions, and you're sluggish, you'll get out. This is also necessary. Dangerous? You also need to understand. And he says to me, "Yes, my son has died." You see, this is the payment for doing this. You think that you are so smart, good, collected a herb, made a decoction, gave it to a girl who didn't want to give birth there. And you have shown your professionalism. They took your son away for that. In other words, this is, well, a big serious responsibility. And so we shaman always know about this, that if we help people, if I can't cope, then I can suffer myself physically, mentally, spiritually. And my relatives, friends, that is, my children, my wife, and the next generation, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, may suffer physically. Up to the 7th or 9th generation, this may be reflected. Therefore, many people who now walk like sires alone, yes, this suggests that their ancestors made a lot of mistakes. That the related family does not communicate with each other, there are few of them. And this is a big serious problem. That's why I always tell people, live your life, live this life, because the gods envy us. Because we are much better and more interesting to us than the gods in heaven.
How do you enter into a trance state? What is it in general?
In our shamanism in Bariat, this is called entering into a trance. That is, you evoke the invocation of the ancestor's spirit into yourself, and replace your soul and consciousness with the consciousness and soul of the ancestor. In other words, it turns out that I, as it were, rent my body. And through me, the ancestor comes, and says this or that information that a person wants to know. Well, that's it. Well, at this moment I am becoming a living time machine. In other words, these are interesting things. When I first time, my dad was an earth shaman, and he made do there with prayers and fire. I kept asking him, "Why don't you have a tambourine?" "I don't know, I don't have a teacher, I don't have one." And when we arrived at Aginsko, I saw a tambourine there, and when I saw a trance, and when the teacher let in the spirit of the ancestor, and began to say those things that only we knew, my first thought was, I also want to be such a time machine. And I kind of immediately realized for myself that this is a very cool thing. When you summon the spirit, you inspire yourself. But again, in order to inspire the spirit without consequences and damage to organs and health and the psyche, you need to have qualifications. And these are serious things, They are comparable to the height of a person in sports. That's exactly how to plow in sports, you really need to understand. These are very serious. Because when the Angans come, the spirits of the ancestors are very strong. Physically tired and mentally. Sometimes I just don't have the strength. And there are such heavy ancestors' spirits come in and take a lot of energy. And it feels like I haven't eaten for 3 days. And I can lose about 3 to 5 kilograms a day. In other words, these are serious stressful things, like a former athlete. It's, well, just heavy loads. Many people can't stand it. They really get sick there. Well, sometimes the nose bleeds, or the organs start to hurt. And we turn to doctors. Well, that is, then there are serious medical procedures. In other words, this is very serious. Well, you are interesting, of course, cool, but also dangerous if you are not prepared, if again, there are also tricky things there. And it happens that if the shaman is weak in spirit and will, then the spirit that the ancestor came into the body. He begins to like this life. And he may not leave.
And what to do?
So then we conduct rituals, and ask the gods of this spirit back to heaven, and to return the soul to the body again. And that a person connects with his body, soul, and begins to work and live further. Because if the spirit does not come out, well, really a shaman, well, he walks like a drunk, bad, well, or inadequate. It happens that we even call soon. Yes, they put sedatives there and carry out certain manipulations so that the person comes to himself. Well, it's like such a loss of consciousness. And then, when a person returns, he does not understand what happened in space. Therefore, preparation is needed, and there must be willpower and fortitude to also politely ask the spirit to go home to heaven. There's no need to stay here. That's because, well, the lease is over, the candle has gone out. Well, that is like this. Well, I explain it somehow in simple language. Of course, spirits can be offended and punished for these things, because, well, you can't expel God, say, that's it, let's leave. You can't do that. Well, accordingly, there are certain procedures, prayers, so that everything is beautiful, competent, allegorical, so as not to offend. And that's why you can't talk to the gods either, because they are gods. They can take a life or maim it for 1 or 2. Well, or punish through dear close people or situations there, yes. There we had shamans who behave fraternally with the gods. Someone's house will burn down, then the car will burn down, then the children become crippled. I mean, it's dangerous. Here is one shaman I also recently died. Crashed on a plane. Also here. Something somewhere must have made some kind of mistake. Well, if the shaman does everything right and thinks about the consequences all the time, these things shouldn't happen. With children there, with relatives, friends, or with the health of the shaman himself. But again, it all depends on the person, his fate, his relationship. You can shamanize so that like a candle burns, and life becomes short. You can work in such a way that you don't waste it. In other words, there should be a measure in everything, common sense and professionalism, misunderstanding of the process. That's how you want to jump a checker on a tank, but this is wrong. Practice is needed everywhere, understanding is needed everywhere, serious things and an approach are needed everywhere. Because this is not a joke, this is the place to be. And this concerns the dearest person, this is Vera.
Tell us more about the settlers. Can a spirit live for a person?
Yes, you need to understand, this is just an obsession, yes, this is what we call this unauthorized entry. That is, here are people who are crazy about this obsession, yes, sometimes they shout something there. I call this unauthorized entry, that is, without permission, without certain things, a person made some mistake. And allowed a spirit with an otherworldly world to enter his body and use it. Well, equivalent to that simple example, yes. Imagine that a person lives at home, wakes up in the morning, some guy is sitting in the kitchen, eating him and food, using his things. And he can't kick him out. Here. Accordingly, he calls the police, there are friends, relatives, and this person is kicked out. We also have shamanism and exorcism, that is, we call on the gods of a special service, like a policeman. Like a riot police cathedral comes, masks show and take out. And the soul is all, you live quietly, the problem is solved. And when the ancestral one comes already firm, an initiated shaman, then yes, it may be that he may not leave. Accordingly, the person begins to get sick. And, accordingly, we have criteria for understanding. The spirit came, did not come. I always explain to my students, I say, from no sensations, to complete withdrawal, loss of consciousness, it's all ango, and trance. That is, when I tell my students a shaman puts on a hat, then he is no longer a citizen, and not a person. He is already a vessel, a structure in which the spirit enters and the spirit works. When I take off my hat, my personality returns, awareness, understanding, and already how would I work? For many shamans, it happens that they start. They have a condition, as if they were abruptly woken up and forced to do something. And they don't understand at all what to do, where they are, they haven't woken up yet. Here is an example. The same thing happens when a person comes out of the ambient of a foreigner, then well, it happens that he comes to himself for a long time. And sometimes you slap a person on the cheeks there. And you don't call, you call, that is, the person comes to himself. Sometimes it happens that ammonia is presented so that a person wakes up and regains consciousness. There are such things. And it happens that it's like you're singing, beating a tambourine, no sensations, nothing. And inside you somehow understand that you have already helped, understood something for yourself. Well, we'll sort of end it there. Let's say I have, when I open the rites, in the process of kamlania, I already see there, I understand what diseases, what problems, what a person needs, what things are going on, and what is bothering him. That is, I've been banging the tambourine for 2 or 3 minutes, I'm already turning the person around and saying, you have problems with your leg there, you have problems with your stomach there, you have this, that. Well, the person says, yes, yes. Well, everything is as it were. And what? Well, now everything has recovered, everything is fine. That is, in the process of the rite, this is all going through at speeds. Extraction, corrections, these are all. And the person recovers, and his life is getting better. Shamans at different times went to transport directly under different hallucinogens. That is, the northern peoples and many used fly agarics, there, let's say, Latin America used ivesca. That is, a special kind of grass. There, Peruvian shamans chew coca leaves and enter a trance, so to speak. In Bariat shamanism, until an indefinite time, there was a trance, the use of alcohol, a light form of it. That is, we have a Bariat concept of such vodka, arsigashan. That is, it's like this from 10 to 20 degrees of alcohol, and through this entered into trance. That is, well, the consciousness itself was allegedly turned off. And at least in our school we don't use it and forbid it. And we use entering into the tone, only here is the vibration of the tambourine, the sound of the tambourine, the voice. And the inner spiritual state, that is, a certain exaltation, and the approach of this understanding. So over time, when we work, pray, it is this feeling, understanding, comes to everyone in their own way. Let's say it started so that, let's say, I didn't have a hand, and I saw with the referee's side vision that it was an old, elderly person's hands. And they are of such a different shape and volume, and as if so transparent, but from above. I'm banging a tambourine, and I realize that it's like it's not me. Here. And then it happened that it seemed to inflate, and I became some kind of huge. That is, here is the scaling, such changes. Then there were straight clear pictures. Right now I see a rider riding on a horse, jumping off a horse and straight boom, I get knocked up, and I'm rocking like that. Well, there were such frank things. Then it happened that my spine, let's say, started to hurt, vibrate there, and I started to make some unnatural movements. That is, well, uncontrolled for me. I mean, well, I don't do that in life. It's well such things out there. Well, or let's say that I had an ancestor duty Zaarin. In Russian, his baptismal name was Dmitri. Here. From him. He fell off his horse. Well, as relatives told. He fell off his horse, injured his kneecap, and his left knee did not bend. And that's when I called him and asked him to come there to help treat someone or find out what happened. I have. I started to start the tambourine, and I look, my leg begins to straighten, it jams, and that's it. And I understand that he has come. My leg straightens, straight, does not bend, and hurts terribly. And what to do? And I think, well, okay, then the tambourine continues to beat. But then, over time, the pain seemed to go away, but the feeling of her legs straightened out. And the fact that there was something wrong with her knees. It alone is present, it remains. Here. And then over time, it began to appear so that just like that. Well, I kind of fainted a few times in my life, so let's say, right. Disconnected. It's the same here. You just beat the tambourine and that's it. And then again. And voices. And then you come to yourself. It turns out that for an hour, he was saying something there and explaining and telling something. And, well, I don't remember what I said, what language I spoke, what things happened. Sometimes it happens that I see a person, give a full account, control that I'm sitting on a chair, I'm talking to a person. But I understand that it's not me talking. As if I am, but as if it's not me. But I'm not interfering with this process. There the thought appeared, I said appeared, said. And all as if I'm not in the way. And interesting things. I don't seem to know Bariat in my life. I just can't communicate like that. And when I go into a trance, I speak Bariat, old Bariat. Sometimes they say such words there that we open the dictionary and look at what kind of word it is and what is the meaning. Sometimes it happens when different people of nationality come. It happens when I'm there, let's say in courage, yes. I slept there in a good mood, ate delicious, then it happens that the ancestor's spirit, if I let down, is a person with another nationality, he speaks his language. At the same time, I do not know this language. Well, that is, such things happen sometimes. Well, this is such a heavy, serious thing, and a lot of time has been spent on it. But then again, you can't do it unnecessarily either. That is, here you are going to say, let's go into a trance. It won't work. And if it is matched to a certain situation, then it will be stipulated by the gods. Everything is explained, why they were called, on what occasion, for what, how then please. That is, you can lower the angona, and ask these or other questions, and find out what is happening, and why some things are happening. How to behave in the future. This is the minimum set of a shaman who already has the right to work and help people. That's all. Here's a hat, tools, tambourine. This is the first year of initiation. Arvoy iron horns, this is the third dedication. From his third initiation, the shaman has the right to help other people and pray to the higher gods, to make big serious requests. Well, the first one. This is our hat, called fur. This is the black shaman's hat. But it is necessary not to be afraid, but simply to understand. We have three energies in shamanism. The first energy is a blacksmith's workshop. The second energy is coming, it's white. It concerns medicine, clairvoyance, chiropractic, herbalists. These are white shamans. And black shamans are those who can turn to the higher gods, do serious rituals, and go to the lower world. And negotiate with the god of death about human life and life extension. This black hat of a black shaman is called Mayhapshi. Why are there eyes here? In our understanding, such a thing happens. When a shaman goes into a trance, the spirits see through these eyes. And, as a rule, we explain to people at ceremonies, we say that you can't look into these eyes, because when space is opened, and space is approaching very close, then the energy of space can damage the health of the person who looks here. And his soul can also be damaged. And it's dangerous. That's why we tell people not to look. And then, these pigtails hide the shaman's face, so that there is some abstraction, and a person, having come to the shaman, communicates with the angel, with the ancestor's spirit, and does not pay attention to the shaman himself as a person. This is what we call a hall. This is a symbol of the supreme God, our Buryat deity. This is the sun on the Ran. In Russian Slavic paganism, this is the god Ra, the sun. Well, that is here. Snakes on a black hat, a black shaman has 5 of them, a white shaman has a white hat, there, that is. White fabric is sewn or light-colored fabric. Here are 3 snakes. There are 5 snakes on the black hat. But snakes are a symbol of wisdom. And so in a modern way it is, so to speak, fiber optics. This is the connection between worlds, between spaces. Well, some shamans say that they ride these snakes, fly around the worlds there, like on horses. This is what we call a toiber. A tambourine beater is made in the form of a rattlesnake. Here. A rattlesnake, like a cobra, it is very intelligent, and, so to speak, it never attacks and never shows aggression. If she is worried, and if she is disturbed, we all know, yes, in nature, that a rattlesnake raises its tail and warns a person or animal with rings from the molting of the skin that I am here, I am dangerous, do not approach me. Disturb me. Here. And this toiber is also a sign of wisdom, a symbol of wisdom, that is, understanding and warning. This is what we call a mess in Buryat. Well, the literal translation is a whip, a whip. We used to wear real shamans, like a whip, made of leather for a horse, to drive a horse. That is, well, shamans, we are now in this form. Here is the fate of a noble animal, deer or elk, and November or roe deer face. Here we have dozens of tools. This is every world. This is the upper world, the middle world, the lower world. In the middle world, there are also blacksmithing things here. In other words, these are the God's spirits who help us in our work. And when we work, clean people, it's like restoring the aura, energy, and human health. And if we are, let's say, in an aggressive environment, there are a lot of, so to speak, demons around us, boos. Schooners are called in Buryat there, in Russian then demons and devils. So we whip them like a whip and drive them away. Shaman's tambourine in the first years of the shaman's life and work is leather from a domestic goat. In the further growth of the shaman, the skin changes. That is, urines, wild roe deer, Izaiber or elk come out to the deer. Well, the highest shamans are a bear. That is, if we take it so simply, a domestic goat, we are there as it were, yes. Oh, great ancestors, please come, here we need help to do this like this, please help. And when the shaman is already growing up, and we become adults, so to speak, serious shamans, we are already changing the skin, let's say, a wild goat urine. He's barking like a dog in the woods. And we are already saying, hello, great ancestors. Please help me, this is what we need to do. Provide assistance. So already the voice is confident, as if yes. When the raisin or moose skin has already left us, we already say, hello, how are you? We need to work. Come on, help me. Well, that is already the attitude of work, right?
Its purpose is a call.
Yes, the call of communication, as we open the portal, and there is communication, the transfer of information. When we knock, there are vibrations, the gates open, and we are a voice. It's all a fake complex. Well, this is how the antenna works, the transmitter of receiving and transmitting information. Something like this. And when a shaman has a burskin, then... Well, this is usually the case with higher shamans, Zaarins, then we talk to the gods as if on equal terms.
Is this already higher?
Yes, high shamans, yes. It's like we're already turning to the gods. Hello. In general, today is a planaroshka. The tasks are as follows. We are working. Well, that is like this. Here. Here we have a connection with the worlds of burbot skins. This is a tribute to the attitude towards the first shamanic heaven, the so-called Gutar Tongri, that is, Guzurgum. It's on the skyline. In other words, this leads us into the mythology that life came out of the water. And in our legends, myths, we got a man from burbot. Therefore, Bariats teased us with burbot as a child. But it kind of has to do with our myths, legends. And so the gods of burbot divided the tale into two parts, made legs, and a man appeared. Here, that is. And here in Denmark, in respect for the first shamanic heaven, it's on the skyline, here we have a burbot skin tied. And the fact that there is a concept of the tree of life, and we are all connected with the forest. This is firewood, hunting. Here is the skin of a deer, an animal. Well, Tanya, respect for the fact that here is a man. The gods gave the animal, man extracted, meat was used in food, and skins were sewn clothes. That is, they survived from the cold, and, accordingly, continued to eat. And here's the disrespect for all of this. This is where we have shamans. Well, plus, according to the totem, yes, support for these animal energy levels associated with water and forest. And most importantly, seriously, this is Argoi, the shamanic crown of iron. He dresses in the third year of the black initiation, and gives the shaman the opportunity to communicate with all three worlds, and at different levels to help people in different ways and opportunities. Also, serpents, dragons are multi-headed intermediaries, helpers. Here are lizards, well, a symbol of enemies. It's like that in nature, yes. Animals butt heads and prove their territory, defend or show their beauty and greatness there, that is, from the horn. Well, plus the horns here from the point of view of physics, it's like the antenna of a tram or trolleybus. In other words, we are connecting. That is, up to 3 years, the shaman works with the concept of the earthly level, that is, the horizon. When he puts on the horns, he is already connected to the sky and can already communicate with the pogues. The higher worlds and different levels above a person's head, so to speak. Well, plus going to the lower world, dungeons. Here. There is also such a serious thing here, the so-called shaman's scythe. Here it is the key of the heavenly gate of Tongari. We call it Hastanga. So it's a swastika, right? But do not confuse it with Hitler's, German, because all these signs and things were given to Hitler by Tibetan lamas. That is, to read the right story too, and as if not to be afraid of it, just to understand, to understand. This coffee is shamanic, it's 3 levels, and there are 3 worlds in each level, and there are 3 levels in each honey. Here I have 3 braids in 3 parts. Here's 1, 2 and 3. In other words, it means that I can communicate and work with 3 worlds, and with 3 subworlds. That is, it turns out 9 and that. The ability of this opportunity. Well, plus it's like bulletproof vests, a helmet protects me in an aggressive environment. And gives me the opportunity to help people. Because there are a lot of bad entities in that world. This is how protection works, yes, and gives as a kind of pass permission to work in different worlds, at different levels. That is, I somehow dress up, go into a trance, and the gods see that a shaman has come who has qualifications, protection. And, accordingly, permits and permits. This, let's say, if you take a simple electrician, yes, and he has a warning, where it says the types of his work. And accordingly, the more tension, and he knows how to work, the more his qualifications grow. Also a driver's license, yes, drivers have a lot of experience, in which there are many categories. So his professionalism is very high. That is, the highest professionalism when a person drives, but drives big cars, and people are driven, so to speak. Well, it's the same here. That is, the level of the shaman, it depends too. That is, if I am like a shaman, as in the army, I see the rank and level of an officer by the asterisks. Also, let's say shamans. We see that a shaman has a trade, so he already has qualifications, knows how and can do something.
Tell me more about your attire.
Well, this is a folk. Our national costume is called jeegal. Shamanic robe. This black tali says that I am a black shaman. But I don't know that I'm bad, I'm spoiling there. This means that I can work with dark forces, with heavy energies, with heavy destinies and problems. That's the top of the pile. But we were allowed to do it in the form of a bullet. In general, it should be in the shape of a heart. In other words, it is copper, it is made of copper, and its function is to protect my nervous system and heart, so that there is no overload or damage there. One time. Because psychic energy, its interaction, has a very strong effect on the heart of the world. These are the protections. These are 3 levels. These are my blacksmiths, my ancestors, and this flower is my father's fault. That is, I am a shaman by my mother, but I also hung up on my father so that there would be protection. Shamans' rosary beads are called eri. We use them to guess. I tell my shamans to my students that they should be, but there are shamans to whom their ancestors, let's say, guessed on cards. They animate the cards. There are shamans who guessed the ancestors on the bones. They animate the bones. Someone was guessing on the rocks. Pebbles enliven. Well, everyone has their own level of inability to work with certain subjects. Well, we have it clear. Now there is such a modern concept of syncretism, that is, the overlap of the connection of different techniques, trends in different religions. And so we Buryats are very much connected with Buddhism. Here. And now I have clear they are, as it were, Buddhized. They are 108 grains here. Real shamanic, clear from 80 to 90 grains. There are 108 grains here. Well, as it is, in principle, we are working clearly here. There is a certain level of grains, then the number of grains determines the images and concepts. What kind of problems a person has there, what is there somehow. Well, they also need to be able to use them, too, to find a common language. And the owner of these beads directly becomes the ancestor. We learn the name of the ancestor. There is an opportunity through trance to learn the name of an ancestor who was in previous generations. And he becomes the master of the rosary. Sometimes we send people to the Buryat archives or the church, where they raise their pedigree, they look there. Ask relatives which of the relatives was a shaman. And here in the name of the shaman, it revives a clear. And calling him, they ask for help to look at a person, his fate, for health. Here we look at them. And here I have a silver one. This suggests that I am a white shaman. That is, I have clairvoyance and consciousness. Well, I celebrate a bone, a tendon. I do massage, so to speak, manual therapy. Well, I can make a little bit of some kind of decoction, too. So it turns out I'm a complete shaman. Well, the blacksmiths should be the same, but I don't wear it. Here. And so in general, in theory, I should still have one like this. Well, I don't wear them, because they rattle, as if an animal, a cow, interferes. That's why I have such white, black and clear. Accordingly, here they say that I am a complete shaman. Yes, a woman can't be a blacksmith. And if a woman has become a blacksmith, then it is very dangerous and fraught.
And in general, here are women and shamans. Who can they be?
We call them Udogan. Shaman women Udogan in Buryat. They work the same way as men. They have the same tools and abilities, opportunities. Some female shamans and a forum can give a man.
So there are no divisions.
There is no gender difference in terms of the white-black shaman. Here is a blacksmith, there is no female blacksmith. That is this. And if a woman in real life became a blacksmith, then of course it's good for a person to have talents and abilities. But for me as a shaman, I understand that she is the last in their family, and after her the gods in her family will lose the gift of interaction with blacksmith's masters. And in order to get it back again, you will have to try very hard. Accordingly, our blacksmiths supervise material welfare, internal health, nerves, bones, muscles, tendons, and the brain. Therefore, if a woman has a blacksmith in her beard, then in the future in this family, these are all problems, diseases with organs. They will be present. And this should be understood and given to this report. Therefore, in our country, at least in shamanism, in our reorganization, women are forbidden to enter the forge. That is, it is taboo. Here. And we have Kuzya there, a woman is forbidden to enter there. Only a man. Yes, it's called Yeha Imita. The highest protection and the highest level of shamanism. In other words, this is the costume of Zaarin, the supreme shaman. Here it is made of metal and bear skins. Here. And a hat. The personification of evil happiness. Wind rose, sun, moon. You are above the deity. Ours. This suit protects us from an aggressive environment and helps us work in different worlds at different levels. It is made from each person individually by blacksmiths. And this is completely the skeleton of my body. That is, it's really my palm, that is, my height, spines, ribs, everything is being measured completely. And my feet. When I put on this suit, I get protection. Well, let's say for a diver it's scuba gear, for a steelworker it's clothes, for a firefighter it's clothes too, right? In other words, it means that all my bones are wrapped in metal as it were. And protection also shows that my body is as strong as iron. That is, it allows me to work in different worlds, at different levels, in different environments. And gives me more serious opportunities. Well, imagine, yes, the difference between a finger battery and a power plant. Well, I have this power plant. In a nutshell. And this is the Earth, the levels of interaction with its state, structures, and heaven. Also, color also matters. This is also the second suit of the same, only it was already being dressed for the 5th or 6th year. And this is for the 9th or 13th year. This one we have a cape, called the Merg of the White Shaman, also snakes, worlds. Here are the rosary beads of my white ancestors' healers. They are distinguished by a silver ring and dividers of 27 grains. That is, it's black, it's called white. Here is the white shaman's hat. That's the color, you see, right? Not black, blue there, gold, green, and 3 pigtails, 3 snakes. That's the difference from the black hat. We have here a manifested syncretism with Buddhism, a connection, yes. We have a bell called Hamka here. We call it and treat people, their health aura. It's a white mess. Here too, here is the upper world, the middle, the lower world for helping people. And here is such a dragon cane. The boyak is called. After all, there is a belief that a white shaman flies on it. That is, We put it on our left hand, and look at it. There must be a language, and it must be fluent. This is so that the shaman can pray, and be eloquent in persuasion and requests to appeal to the gods. If he does not move in someone's dragon, it means that he has problems with speech, and with the ability to negotiate and read prayers. The spear is a symbol of power. Well, as if it means our school. That's it. And as if instead of the fact that there are shamans here. This is the throne of our main god of the Buryat Baikal region. His name is Bukhanayan Tagari. The literal translation is bull, father, sir. In Buddhism, this is Renchi Khan with Husin. In Christianity, I don't know why, but Saint Paphnutius. Well, that is, such a parallel is personified. This wolf skin is also totemic. I have a mouth and a Haratev in my family, and Harita is their patron saint of the wolf, Shona. The sign of a horse is a horse's tail, good luck, prosperity. This is the lower world, sheep. The masters did so they saw the throne of the main Baikal god here. And here we have Buchanan, the bullfather master. He is the father of the Buryat people, and the pope of the two main Buryat clans. These are Bulagats Akarites. So these are sable skins. In Buryat, Boulogne.
And how is it used? In the rites?
Yes, only in the rites, and on it I enter into a trance. And so in everyday life, you can't just sit here. That is, he just found it. This is the personification of the bull. This is the sign of the moon, the sun. In Buryat it is called Sambo. And this is fire, and a sign of power, of supreme power. The sign of fire is a trident. What you saw at the top of the roof is the sign of the three worlds, the upper, middle, higher, the sign of fire. And the sign of power and knowledge, wisdom, as it were.
Thank you, dear friends, for being with us. Take care of yourself, and all the best to you.
Hello. Shadow control is on the air. Every person in his life repeatedly encounters magic and what is inexplicable. And when faced with this, he often forgets, although the consequence remains. And the question is, what is magic? False or true? Magic exists and it's real. If magic was a fantasy or a deception, it wouldn't have existed for so many thousands of years. And throughout all this time, it has seduced and seduces the masses of people to this day. Magic is the oldest and most numerous religion, the religion of Satan, whose adherents are even atheists. That is why all the prophets at all times said about the inadmissibility of practicing magic, that magic does not lead to hell. And yet, some religions, originally built on the true teachings introduced by the prophets, today openly engage in magic, conduct various magical rituals, offerings, sacrifices. But after all, the prophets did not do this and, moreover, bequeathed not to do it. All these actions are imposed by the devil, as well as begging, allegedly from God, for material goods, health. But the prophets said, "Is it worth asking God for anything but the salvation of the soul?" It turns out that those who had to fight and resist magic openly serve Satan. Why is she so attractive? When people, knowing about the ruinousness, and, nevertheless, exchange the eternal for the momentary, ghostly, material. Yes, the invisible world exists, and it is diverse, like the ocean is full of unknown life. And together with you, friends, we would like to understand a little bit about what magic really is, why it is so tempting, and how the invisible world really works.